The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network.
Sean Bean and Connie Nielsen star in Robin Hood. From Sherwood Forest to the Norman Court, a classic tale reborn for today. The story continues to unfold. New episodes Sundays on MGM+.
Abercrombie Kids is bringing the cheer all holiday season. And winter break means it's time for new outfits that are both festive and comfy. The last thing they need? New cozy coats for every occasion. Celebrate the season with Abercrombie Kids in the app, online, and in stores.
Welcome to the Animal Communication Podcast, where we talk to animals. We're your hosts,
Karen Dendy Smith,
Meredith Tolleson,
and Julie Hirt. Every week, we'll share insights and stories from the animals.
We'll also share how animal communication is a huge part of our lives, influencing our own growth, as well as deepening the relationship with our animal family.
We'll be weaving in special guests and animal communication readings, so join us as we discuss all things animal communication.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Animal Communication Podcast. I'm Karen Dendy Smith, and with me are my awesome friends and co-hosts,
Meredith Tolleson
and Julie Hirt.
So today we have a very special guest joining us. We're very excited about her. And I can say that just by reading her blogs and watching her videos, my mind and heart have expanded into embracing what the animals can share about realms I didn't consciously know or hadn't remembered yet. Hint, remembered. So I just want to say welcome, Nancy Windheart.
Thanks, all of you. It's a delight to be here, and I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Us too. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Nancy before we get rolling on our conversation. She is an internationally recognized animal communicator and interspecies communication teacher. She teaches courses and training programs in interspecies communication for both lay people and those who wish to practice professionally, and provides animal communication consultations, intuitive and energy healing sessions, and professional mentoring for clients worldwide. She is also a Reiki master teacher and has a complete Reiki training program called Reiki for All Species. And it sounds pretty cool. Nancy's interspecies communication students have included scientists, trainers, groomers, behaviorists, animal rescue volunteers and professionals, veterinarians and veterinary technicians, Reiki and animal Reiki practitioners, pet sitters, and many animal lovers from all walks of life. Certified graduates of her Animal Communication Professional Practitioner Training Program have gone on to work professionally in the field of animal and interspecies communication. Nancy's work has been featured in television, radio, magazine, and online media, and she has written for many digital and print publications. She's a contributor to the book From Sounds True, The Calmer of Cats, Spiritual Wisdom from Our Feline Friends, and the newly published anthology, Dark Matter, Women Witnessing Dreams Before Extinction. And Nancy says, "My life's work is to create deeper harmony between species and on our planet through interspecies communion, connection, and communication, and to facilitate physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual healing and growth for people and animals through my healing services, classes, workshops, and retreats." Boy, that's not a lot to take on, Nancy. So we're so excited to have you here. And we really want to dive into your experiences with animal reincarnation. We know that this is kind of the overarching conversation driver for us today. But first we just want to say hello, get to know you. And would you mind starting us off with telling us a little bit about your story for those who don't know who you are yet?
Sure. Yeah, so I have been practicing as an animal and interspecies communicator for coming on 20 years now. Before that, I had a whole other life as a professional musician and music teacher. And during that time in my adult life, I began doing a lot of work with animal rescue. And that is a longer story, but what I'll say about it just in summary was I adopted my first dog as an adult through an animal shelter and started volunteering there. And there was an animal communicator, and this was in the actually late 80s. So I'm dating myself here, who volunteered at that shelter, and or early 90s, I think. It doesn't matter so much the timeline, but I watched her work, and it really reopened what I had remembered as a child of being in connection and communication with the animals who were in my life. And so that kind of began this parallel track where I was doing a lot of rescue work. I was reading and studying everything I could find about animal communication back in the day, which wasn't a lot, and never really dreamed and imagined that my path would lead me kind of out of the music world and into the animal communication world. But as these things go, and as spirit in the universe works and guides us, and the animals have taught and guided this whole process, I ended up really having a big life change and shifting into doing this work, which is the work that, is the work of my heart.
So, okay, so you say life change, and it's really interesting because each one of us, too, feels like the animals, or a particular animal sometimes, even one that has passed, has really been a catalyst for life change.
Yeah.
Something happens. And so, can you share a little bit more about what you mean by a life change, or what really was what kind of moved you into this more?
Yeah. I uh had uh a cat who I there was a period of time where I did a lot of work with trap, neuter, release, and feral cats.
Mm.
And I had a cat who came into my life. His name was Freddie, and I've written about him in that Karma of Cats book that you mentioned in the introduction. And Freddie was my catalyst. He was a really tough, very beat up, had a hard life, street cat, and basically feral. And he came into my life, and he completely changed it. And he was the guide, really, who came and said, okay, you've been, working on the edges of this interspecies animal communication world for, a long time. Now is the time. You got to go. You got to go, and you got to focus on this. And he was in spirit at that time, when he came in and gave me that very clear message. And so that really precipitated my journey. And for me, it required a lot of physical life changes as well.
Mm.
And I want to be clear, and as you know, I teach and I talk with a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily mean that stepping onto this path is going to dramatically turn your life upside down, unless in my case, it was a life that was not a bad life. It was a good life, but it was not the life I was meant to live. And so, relationship change, geography change, move, lots of things needed to change in my life in order for me to come more into alignment with being able to offer this work, and to also really create the conditions in which I could do the spiritual work that I needed to do to be able to show up clearly for the animals and their human companions. So it was really Freddie. He remains my guide, my teacher. I'm in touch with him, daily. And I've realized many, many years after the fact and I'm circling back to our theme for today of reincarnation, that Freddie actually was a kitten that had been with me at a very important and difficult time in my childhood. And I didn't know that spirit who had been in that small kitten body, who was not here long, had come back to me in Freddie's form until many years later. But once I realized that and recognized it, those pieces started to come together even more deeply for me.
How did you know and recognize and realize this?
This came after after Freddie had been in spirit for a long time, and
Okay.
so he's a being who is one of these great wisdom teachers and guides, and so he just communicated that to me, and he showed me the image of this kitten, and there was a it was very precise, and it was really the kitten was really the first time that I can remember where I had what I would call deeply mystical experiences with an animal, where I really, as a small child, could recognize that we were in realms that were kind of out of ordinary reality. And so Freddie had come in and just communicated to me, yeah, you remember that little kitten? I called her Snowball. That was me. I came to make relationship with you in this lifetime. I couldn't stay long. I came into this small body, and then at this critical juncture in your adult life, I was there again with you. So that's how that happened.
That's incredible. I mean, I have chills when you tell this story. It's I always get these massive chills. I think we all talk about this, and we get these knowing chills, like that's such truth, like depth
Yeah.
of truth, that you get these chills, and that is just incredible.
Yeah.
I love that you said even as a small child, and I might add, especially as a small child. You mentioned that Freddie helped you reopen and as Karen said earlier, remember. I
Uh-huh.
think so many of us, the three of us especially, and so many of our listeners say that they had that experience. They were so much more open as a child
Yeah.
until the world got to them.
Uh-huh.
Um, so we can just accept so much more before we know we're not supposed to, And thank Freddie for coming into that. So Freddie was he the first animal that told you they had reincarnated? He was in your life. What other animals started sharing that with you? Because I kind of feel like once you are open to that concept, then the others start coming through and showing up and saying,
Yeah.
"Yeah, yeah, me too, me too."
Yeah.
So talk about some of
Yeah.
the others and the lessons that you learned from them.
Yeah. So, there's the animals in my personal life, which I can share about in quite a lot of detail. And at this point, in my current animal family, I have actually four animals that that have been with me in this lifetime more than once. And when I've wondered about that, really, right? Like this, because the first time it happened, it was such a profound gift and a profound blessing, and this unfolding of this, the next phase of this very deep soul relationship that I have with one of my dogs, who's an Afghan hound. Her name is Tashi in this lifetime. And so the first time it happened, it was just, this like nothing like that had ever happened to me before. I was aware of Freddie, but beyond that, I hadn't been aware of um, Freddie's reincarnation until after he had left his Freddie body, right? And so to have it happen with conscious awareness when Tashi came and she communicated the specific and precise details of that to me, was really, it was the first time that I had experienced that. I had friends and colleagues in the animal communication world who had experienced it before. And by the time Tashi came, I had been working as an animal communicator for several years. And so I had also experienced it with clients, and other people's animals. And so, but she was the first one who really took me through all of the steps of the
Mhm.
process. And then since then, just recently, in the last 2, 3 years. I have had 2 cats who have come back in quite quickly after they passed. And then one of my chickens, I have a little flock of bantam chickens, and one of my chickens also returned. So I've got these 4 beings in my family right now. But, because I've written and spoken publicly about it, of course, I get a lot of people who also come to me for consultations, and students in my classes who both share their stories and then want to dive more deeply into this topic also. So there's kind of been a big accumulation of stories and experiences that I recognize, one of my roles now is to share and to talk about and to help people understand this, what's possible in this process.
Okay, so I want to know more about that. I have lots of clients who ask me, will my dog, cat, lizard, horse come back to me in this lifetime? And I've not had a personal experience with reincarnation in my own animal family, so I don't really know what to tell them. Have you found, is there a reason why some animals would come back, or for specific people? Why have you been blessed with 4 in your current home and someone else that wants that so badly doesn't have that experience? What do you tell people when they ask you that?
Yeah. So to your last question about why, why me? I don't know, except that I do know that one of the things that I am meant to do here is to teach other people about it. And so it's a training for me, right? Having these experiences and having them be showing up in the way that they have, and what I've learned and what I've understood allows me also to help other people. And also my animals are, they're my co-teachers. They're my partners, right? Not all of them, but most of them love that, love to, participate in that way, and love to teach and help people. So that's another aspect in that question, right? To your other questions, Meredith, about first of all, when people ask, right? And people come to me with that question also. And often it comes at a time when there's a lot of grief, right? After an animal has passed, and especially these deep soul relationships that we have with our animals, when they leave, it's just this, it can feel like such a shredding of our energies when they're in spirit and we're in body, right? And so that question of, will my animal come back to me? I always tell people, there's basically 3 kind of possible answers to that. And we, as the animal communicators, are not the ones who are giving that answer. The animals are giving that answer. So we have to be sure to listen very clearly and carefully, and also to recognize that, as with any communication, things can change over time, right? And so, the kind of what I think of as the 3 answers to that question are, yes, I am coming back. And then kind of underneath that are, kind of 2 possibilities. One would be, uh, I don't know yet when or how or what that's going to look like. But yes, I will be back. Kind of the other branch from that is, yes, and, here are the instructions. Right. And I know for me and my own animals, I've gotten various levels of detail of instructions, and the kind of the bottom line is, you get what you need to know when you need to know it. Right. So that's one category. Yes, definitely. Then the next category is, I don't know. Right. Or it now is not the time to know. That is common, right? We have work we need to do. We have healing we need to do. I have work I need to do with you from the other side. Lots of possibilities that an animal could communicate in that, maybe I don't know, right? And then there is the definite no. No, my work here on earth is done. My work in a physical body with you is done. My life is complete. My purpose now is to remain in relationship with you, but from the spirit world. And so that, for example, that's where Freddie is right now. Freddie has been clear that his role is to stay in relationship with me. It's not just about me. He's doing a bunch of other stuff too, right? But that, it's not appropriate for him or right for him to take another body. And so within those broad categories, there's so much fluidity and flexibility. And one of the things that I've learned, I think is important for people to understand is that, sometimes people think, well, why wouldn't my animal want to come back to me? Right? Don't they love me? you know? And there is this vast spiritual realm, for lack of a better word, that we only can see glimpses of, especially from our perspective here in our human physical bodies on the earth. And within that realm, what I've come to understand is that we all have guides, we all have helpers. There are many beings in many realms who are involved with us in many ways. Sometimes we are in conscious relationship with them, sometimes we're not. Animals have those beings as well. And many animals have communicated to me about the concept of a team or a group of helpers, beings, guides. You might call them angels. You could call them, guiding spirits. There, lots of different names. The name doesn't matter so much as the idea that there are beings of great wisdom and benevolence and love who are also our supporters and guiding us with these kinds of things and in our relationships. They are always, I think, involved in this question of potential reincarnation. And so it's not about how much we want it. It's not about our animals making a sort of decision or a choice in an individuated way. That may be one small aspect of it, but it goes to the broader relationship that we have and our guides and teams who are helping us for our soul's evolution together with our animal friends, with our companions, with our soul partners. So they have their own spiritual life. They have their own soul evolution. We have ours as well. Many, many, many times, as you all well know, those two come together in this beautiful path, right? Where they're just completely entwined. And it's bigger than we can often consciously understand or kind of grasp with our human intellect. And so that's a very long answer to the question that you asked, Meredith. But that's just a little bit of what I've come to understand about this whole vast topic.
So wait, I got to ask questions. So in the realm of what you just said, right? Which I believe too, like we're so lucky we get to peek behind the curtain at all.
Yeah.
Which leaves so much room for our human brains and egos to try to make sense of it, which can fall into interpretation, right? As communicators, as conduits for information, if we can sometimes overinterpret, which is something we have to work really, really hard on staying pure about and keeping ourselves out of it as much as possible.
Yes.
But to that point, when you say this bigger realm and this larger team and this like bigger consciousness, collective consciousness for another word, or the one managing this whole collective consciousness structure, have there, because we are a soul, right? That is a never ending kind of spark of the larger consciousness. Can that put our animal like Freddie, like you said, he's busy doing other things because our soul families are so vast and wide. We don't even know sometimes in this particular life parts of our soul family that we may have known in another life, but on one of the lives we may reconvene again, including the Freddie energy soul.
Yes.
So is Freddie potentially in all of our animals part of our soul family connection and potentially working with others as well at the same time who they've been a soul family member of as well, because we're all part of that bigger construct. Do you know what I'm trying to ask? I just said that in a really broad way.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. It's very difficult to find language for many of these things, right? Because it's in a realm that's outside of what our human language is super skilled at conveying. But yes, and the idea that we are in these relationships with other beings of many species, right? And that we travel together through time and space in many different kinds of configurations. For people who are interested, there are people like Brian Weiss and Michael Newton in the human world who have done a lot of really beautiful work with, exploring kind of the nuances of the ways this kind of, shows up. And it was interesting when I first became aware of the work of both of those writers and started reading them. It was after I'd been working as an animal communicator for a long time and listening to animals. And I went, oh, wow, that's interesting. That's what the animals have been showing me. Right.
Oh, cool.
I've been, like, oh, right. Okay. Now that makes sense. Right. And beings on the other side also will show different aspects or show, have different awareness, will show different things. Right. And so it's just a constant learning. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that every communication, every situation, every connection with each being, with each spirit, with each soul is unique and individual. And so it's, once you start to kind of make rules and categories and say it's like this, somebody's going to come along and say, well, let me show you something else. Let me show you this. This is my experience. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm up to. And so we just have to stay open. And as you said, Karen, it's so important to stay clear and as clear as possible, and to, stop short of moving into interpreting. Right. And that's a work in progress that we're always all working with. We do our best and we recognize that, we're not perfect.
You actually set up a question that I also had too, Nancy, in that when you're saying about, need to stay open and all of that, I find when people come to me for particularly grief support sessions with animal loss, there is this expectation that their animal, like to Meredith's question too, right? That there's this expectation that the animal reincarnate. And to me, that begins to create this unopening, if you will, like more of a clamping down kind of thing. And I'm just curious, how have you encountered this expectation, or that people think, oh, I've heard about reincarnation, like you were saying, even, why won't they? Is there anything in particular you could say to address that staying open and allowing aspect?
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because, I remember a time where this was not talked about that much, right? It was not part of the sort of broader field in the public discourse. And I think as animal communication has come more and more into the public sphere, into the mainstream, at least in the animal communities, right? And also the spiritual awareness of people, that reincarnation, is a thing, that it can happen, right? And those things have kind of exploded, at least in my view, recently, like within maybe the last decade, right? But more and more people, I'm getting it in my practice too, more and more people are coming with that question, right? And and so it can create that desperate wanting that we feel when we're in grief, right? Of, if I could just have them back for a moment. If I could just have them back for 5 minutes, if I could just have one more day, right? And that's, we go through that. I'm in a grief process with a dog that I lost several months ago. I feel that, right? It's like, we're not, even if we have the spiritual awareness and the communication abilities, that doesn't mean we get to step over that part of the process.
Right.
We have to go through that grief process. And sometimes when we're in that deep grief process and we want something so badly, people can try to like force it and push it to happen. And what I tell people all the time, what I remind myself of all the time, is that this is something, if your animal is meant to return, and meant to, I even hesitate with that language, but like if it's their soul's journey to return and to return to be with you, um, and that's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And so in a way, like no amount of pushing can make it happen. And no amount of denial, right, can make it not happen if it's going to happen, right? And so it's this process of, yes, we can listen to what the animal is saying about it. And we can be open to the possibility, but we can't control it. And I have learned that, oh my God, so many, with the experiences that I've had, right? Like it comes in and it comes in as this miracle, but you could not have planned it. I could not have planned it if I had tried, right? It's that holding both really gently and carefully and not using the idea of a potential reincarnation to kind of skip over the necessary grief that we have to do.
Yeah.
I know for me in my own life, like I can still be grieving even as the spirit of the one who has passed has taken a new body. Like it doesn't negate, right? It's because it's a different experience and it's a different energy.
In Walmart's Huluville, everyone readied their cart. The early Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember are the 14th to the 16th of November. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
And I'm curious then, because I know you have a really interesting personal experience with an animal, a family member, your cat Lulu, who is formerly known as Louie. So I'm curious how that whole personal experience even feeds into the conversation that we're having, or what, how did he explain what was happening and how he would return? If you can share some of that with us too.
So I love talking. I could go on forever about this, but I'll try to tell the story as succinctly as possible. So Louie was a cat that came to me, really in that critical juncture of my life when I was in between worlds and in the transition. And he came to me through a rescue group that I was partnering with in my feral cat program. And he came to me as a foster cat. He had been hit by a car and, long story short, was a young cat and lost a leg. So he had to have the leg removed. So he came to me as a foster cat when he recovered. And of course, I was a foster failure and I adopted him, fell completely in love with him. He is a brown tabby cat. And Louie was with me for close to 20 years.
Wow.
And he was just this guiding light in my life, in my animal communication work. He taught, class after class after class of animal communication classes with me. And he was one of these beings who was just one of these wise, beautiful beings who was completely aware of his spiritual nature and did a lot of work with the earth in that lifetime. It was a cat I could never keep indoors. So I had to, I created all kinds of cat yards and cat enclosures and cat, keep Louie safe areas, right? And so when he passed, he passed a couple of a couple of years ago now, as we're recording this, is 2025. I can't remember the exact year, 2 or 3 years ago. I fully expected that he would be one of these beings who would go into spirit and remain in spirit, kind of like Freddie, right? As, the wise elder in spirit, teaching and guiding, but not from a physical form. His passing was hard for me, of course, right? And he was an elder, and we'd been through lots of health challenges. And when the time came, it was clear that his body was done, and there was nothing more that we could do. But it was hard, and he wasn't super. It was not a passing where he was super, I would say, ready to go. He was ready to be done with the suffering that was going on in his body. But he was also a little irritated that this body was giving out, right? There was that kind of a feeling. Like, I don't know if you've all experienced that. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'd stay longer if I could, but this darn
Yep.
body, is not doing what I
Yeah.
need it to do. So when he left, I didn't really even hope or expect or think that, he might be taking another body. And one day I was meditating, and he just came in like a blast, his energy, and it was so signature and so clear. He just came in like a blast, and he said, "I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'll be born in the spring." This was like maybe February-ish. He had died in the early part of the year, January, so not long after he died. "Coming back. I'll be born in the spring. You'll have me by June." I went, "Okay." Right? Okay. So I, learned okay, because there's still a part of me that goes, "Okay, am I hearing this just because I want to hear it? Because I miss him," right? But I've learned just, okay, take the communication, let it be, let it sit, let it unfold, right? So I waited, and maybe a month later, he came in again, very strong. He has a very signature way of communicating, very strong. And he said, because I was like, should I be looking at the shelter? Should I be looking at the rescues? What do I need to do here? He said, "I'm going to be coming through the vet. Don't worry about the shelters. Don't worry about going looking. I'm going to come through your vet, and, just wait, right? Let her know that, that you're looking, right?" And so I have a really good relationship with my vet, but we have not gone into this realm of reincarnation, right? But I just, I sent her a message. I said, "Hey, I'm open to a kitten, and I need a female," because at the time, and this is another long story, but at the time, Louie's arch nemesis, whose name was Milo, it was those two male cats had been in my family together for a long time, and they did not get along. And I knew that Milo would not be able to accept another male. And so I had asked Louie, "Could you come as a female?" "Yeah, no problem. No problem. Doesn't matter."
Oh,
Right?
well.
No problem. Yeah. And so I sent a message to my vet. "I'm open to a female kitten. If you hear of anything, let me know." Right? So I just waited, waited. And I'm still grieving, right? And I'm still in this, okay, I'm waiting, but the days started ticking by, and I'm thinking about, cat gestation and, the timeline, and I'm kind of, now it's coming into April, and I'm thinking, okay, chop chop, if I'm not, making this up, right? I should be hearing something pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
And the message from Louis was so consistent. Just wait, be patient, just wait. One day, I think I was sitting outside, and I think I was crying. And he came in and he said, "I found one. I found a mother cat. I found a body. It's going to take me a little while to get to where you can find me. I found one." Like, ooh. And it was either that day or the next day that I got a text from my vet saying, she has a client who does rescue, and she had just taken in a pregnant mother cat. She brought her into the clinic. She did the ultrasound. And actually, she didn't know she was pregnant. She'd taken in this mother cat, brought her in for an exam, and then they found out that she was pregnant. Did the ultrasound, right? And, and because she had come in for a spay. And so they decided, no, they're not going to spay. They're going to let her have the kittens and then spay her afterwards. So she said, there's a litter on the way. Are you interested? And so that's how it happened. There was one tabby female kitten in the litter, and that was the body that Louie came into. Her name is now Lulu, and that was Louie's nickname in his Louie life. And because I asked him, "What do you want to be called?" "See, you call me Lulu. That's easy. It's easy. Works for female. It's easy." And so, it happened just as he said. Right. And so Lulu came home with me at 8 weeks. And she's been here, of course, ever since. She's now an adult. She's coming up on, I think she just turned 2 years, 3 years. I'm losing my timeline. But so she is with me now again. And it's very interesting because in this situation, and this gets into another topic we can talk about if we have time, but, the ways that reincarnation can look, right? And so in this situation, there is an aspect of the Louis energy that remains in the spirit realm. And then there's a large kind of section or portion of that energy that is in Lulu's form. And so she has pretty much picked up right where she left off, down to certain habits and certain things that she does. She's still very connected to the earth. She must be outdoors and have her outdoor time. Her expression of personality is a little bit different, and some of that may be gender, and it's also a different, it's a different body, it's a different form. But there's that soul imprint or the essence of the Louis energy that is so clear in her. And there's a way that Louis looked at me, that she will look at me through her Lulu eyes that just, knocks me out of my chair, right? And so that's the Louis Lulu story.
So here's a question I've never really considered. If Louis has reincarnated into Lulu, is there still a Louis essence out there in spirit that you can work with? Or is all of Louis in Lulu?
Yes. In this case, there is also a Louis essence that is in spirit, right? And so when I teach about this, and I'm putting the finishing touches on a class on this topic because, there's so much to go into and there's so much nuance. But when I teach about this, what I share is that, and again, these are categories that are not black and white. They're not cut and dried, but kind of general categories that I think can help us in our human conceptual framework to understand what might be happening. And so the first category is what I might call kind of a full reincarnation, which is the entire soul essence, the entire spirit of the being comes fully into a new body. And there is not an aspect that remains in the spirit world. So an example of that in my own family is my Afghan hound Tashi, who in her former lifetime was named Tara. And there is no Tara aspect in the spirit world. It's all in Tashi. And even people who, maybe didn't understand kind of all of the nuances of reincarnation, but who knew Tara in her former life and who know Tashi, can feel it, right? It's just so unmistakable. So in that case, that's what I would think of as a full reincarnation. And then there's a category that is a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more kind of difficult to understand sometimes. And that would be either a partial reincarnation or sometimes what I'll call like a braiding together of spirits and souls. So this is, I think, probably more common, in our experiences, where there will be an aspect of a former animal that will come in or come through. Sometimes we can also experience an aspect that is a guide and is not in the form, right? And it can be real hard to feel the difference between the two of those sometimes. But in that kind of partial reincarnation, there may be other energies also that are involved. In Louie Lulu's case, I wouldn't say that's exactly what's happening, because there's no kind of other spirit soul energy that is in Lulu. It's almost as if the way I understand it is there is an aspect of Lulu that is so spiritually connected and is the Louie essence in the spirit world. And so it's almost like it can't be quite completely contained in the body. And so there's an aspect that remains in spirit. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does to me. But so that I make sure I'm confirming what I understand, and maybe this will help people who are listening too, is the complexity of our soul's expanded nature and its interwoven connection with everything else that is. There is still a spark of us that is truly just us, right? That signature mark essence, you called it. I've heard soul spark from the animals, that kind of travels along through all of whatever extra expanded nature of itself it is carrying. And sometimes that expanded nature part of itself is part of the larger collective. Because I understand what you're saying about Lulu Louie, because I feel like my Dusty / hockey puck is in that category. You know, Dusty came to me at a time in college where I didn't know anything about caring for animals. She suffered a lot for me. She ended up getting spleen cancer. Long story short, I didn't realize to the end of her life all that she had done and held for me so that I could feel loved and connected. And her ailment woke me up at the end of her life and guided me into a more conscious way of being. And a lot of guilt in her passing. So when I begged her, I prayed for 3 years, begged her to come back, and started having these dreams about her coming back. For 3 weeks, I had crazy dreams about her being we were stuck in a war zone where things were flying by and we couldn't get to each other. It was scary, loud, lights flying by. And 3 weeks later, my brother says, I found a 3-week-old cat in the middle of a divided highway in the middle of the night with crazy cars flying by. Do you want him? And he looked nothing like Dusty, nothing like her personality. And I knew like an electric shock went through my body that it was her. And when I opened the crate, then he lunged out of the crate onto my chest. I looked in his eyes and I'm like, I know you're in there, Dusty. And yet you're not the same personality. And yet there's other things I need to work on you with. You have a different personality, different ways for me to learn from. But I knew she was there. Do you understand? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think I love that story, Karen. It's just so touching, right? It's so moving. And I think it also illustrates this principle I think is really important for people to understand, which is that a reincarnation is not a clone, right? It's not, and even, if it's what I call a full reincarnation, like, in the situation I mentioned with Tara and Tashi, still there are differences. Right. And, with her, not as many, right? Because, she's a very unique and quirky kind of character. But, it's a different body. The body has its own biology. It's got its own history. It's got its own sometimes trauma. It's got all of that. Right. And so, and also, what I've learned is that, when any being comes to take a new life, they're there because they're on to the next evolution, the next expression, the next thing that you're learning together, the next thing that they're learning and that they're evolving and that you're doing together, right? And so in the case of your cat, right? It's like you feel that spark, that recognition, and that, and that confirmation of out of the carrier into your, right? Like there, right?
Yeah.
But there's differences in personality. There's differences in what you're up to together. It's a different time in your lives together.
Yeah.
You're a lot more conscious and aware now, right?
And so the lessons can get deeper, and I can see the theme carrying through.
Yes.
And even when he who are both now back as one unit in spirit, whatever it's doing, right? Because I call it the soul having whatever experience it's having. It leads me to my next crazy question, which is I have been shown by some animals that they have had experiences of being human. Does that resonate for you? Like
Oh,
they showed
absolutely.
me being a human child in World War One, for example, for me, for a real reason that tied completely into the lessons they were teaching me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you in a way that none of this really can make sense in the 3D realm? But does this make sense that this could be?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've heard it a lot.
Have you?
And yeah, and there are some traditions that have the idea, and I don't mean to, criticize anybody's religion or spiritual tradition, but they have the idea of a hierarchy of evolution, right? And that we evolve through, you know, quote unquote lower life forms to higher life forms, with the pinnacle and the apex being human. And,
Right.
I'm going to guess that those of us here and many of the people in our audience don't really connect with that idea, right?
Right.
But so the idea that particular souls and particular energies, particular sparks, right, can circle through various kinds of forms. Absolutely. Right. And I've had many animals, including my own, but also many animals of clients, show when it's relevant and when it
Mhm.
relates to whatever the, topic is at hand, right? Relevant experiences in other lifetimes that they're aware of. And many times they can and will show human forms. Right. And so, yeah, I think I don't think it's crazy at all. And I think it's more common than we maybe think and
Mhm.
maybe expect. And I also think that it asks us as humans to be really humble and open about our ideas, about our own spiritual awareness and spiritual path, and to recognize that many of these beings who are in our lives and who are our teachers and our companions have cycled with us in many different forms, many different configurations throughout time. And if you have the understanding and the belief, as I do, that the soul is something eternal that remains from lifetime to lifetime, I mean, that's the foundation of this conversation, right?
Right.
And that we evolve and we grow and we learn and we express in different ways to both learn and evolve and grow, and also to share, right? And so why wouldn't we have experiences with different forms, different energies?
Right. And different aspects of our souls having different experiences to collect the data and learning it needs to evolve,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your teaching and your art, your what you write about, which is we don't know what we don't know. So if we have to be as completely neutral and open to let the ideas flow through from these beings of light, so that some of the information that I have received has kind of floored me in the moment, to the point where I'm like, did I just hear that?
Mhm.
And to be in the space where I am so shocked by what I just heard makes me so happy,
Yeah.
because now I know I'm trying to be open to learn as opposed to putting a filter.
Yeah. I think that, that shock factor. I mean, I had something like that just last week with, a client's animal who's on the other side. And I just went, whoa. After all my years of doing this work, I had never heard that. I've
Oh,
never
what did you
understood
hear?
that,
Can you tell
right?
us?
I'm not going to share the
Yes, yeah,
details
okay,
because of
okay,
confidentiality, but,
okay.
it's like, wow, that is so cool. Never heard it in that way, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I think that factor too, that's one of those ways that we can, if it's not in our current realm of understanding or consciousness, or maybe even something we've thought about before, then it's like, for me, I go, well, that's actually becomes more trustworthy then, because I know if it's something I've never even considered before, that's not getting filtered
right.
through my own
Mhm.
experience.
Yeah.
I can give an example from my own family, if you're interested. With I talked previously about Louis and his arch nemesis, whose name was Milo. And Milo also passed. This was last summer, very difficult passing. And he came to me quite soon after his passing from the spirit world, and maybe like within a week. And we were in communication and connection, but he came in one day and he said to me in his kind of signature voice, the way that I heard him, "I don't really like being a spirit." And I'd never heard that from any animal that I've worked with or any animal that I had of my own. We can hear all kinds of things from animals in the spirit world, but that's not one that I had personally experienced, right? I've heard, I'm having trouble adjusting. I need some help. I have some things I need to complete with my person and say to them, all of those kinds of things. But I'd never really heard, well, I don't really like being a spirit. Like, this is not really where I want to be, right? I went, okay, well, maybe it just needs more time. Do you need help? Well, I'm going to take a new body. Okay. And within a month, he had just popped right back in. What I understand now is he just really wasn't complete, right? It was not his time to be in the spirit world. He's back with me. His name is Miles. People might think it's weird that the names are so close, but that's what he gave me. So I got to stick with it. No. And so, in the realm of being surprised, right? Just being surprised and also recognizing that, no, this wasn't something that he needed me or anybody to help him with. This was just his trajectory, right? It
Right.
has to do with his trajectory on his own, independent from me. But of course, it has to do also with our relationship. Interestingly, it also has to do with his relationship with Lulu, and they're reconfiguring that. So I'm understanding as I'm living with both of them together, they're doing the next phase of healing together with each other. Right. And sometimes those old patterns are they'll come back. It's different, right? It's not as intense as it was, but I can see, it's not all about me, right? This is this is something that the two of them, as in their soul relationship with each other, they're working out with each other, right? And they're coming to a deeper understanding and kind of resolution with each other. So there's all of these different levels, and we just, as animal communicators, we do our best to stay open. We do our best to not filter through our own interpretations and our own experiences. And that's an ongoing process. I don't think we ever get it 100% right. And, when we need to be corrected, we get corrected. The animals correct us, right? And we do the best. And I think we stay open. We have to stay open to the magic and the mystery of not knowing and not being able to know and not being able to pin it all down in neat little categories like our human brains want to do, right? But just stay open as much as possible and then see what unfolds, see what shows up.
So I have a question. Since I would say the majority of our listeners do not consider themselves animal communicators, while we believe everyone has these abilities, not animal communicators, or don't necessarily know exactly how to trust this, what advice do you have for people to watch for the signs, to listen to the messages, to hear the things like Milo saying, yeah, I don't like this. I'm gonna come back. How would you guide people to be more open to recognizing signs?
Yeah. I think, first of all, people, when you have a close relationship with an animal companion, there is it's kind of a signature quality of the connection, of the love that you have with them, right? You can feel that. You can feel that energy. And you know what it feels like to be in their presence. And when they are in the spirit world, that does not change. Sometimes intense grief can make it harder to feel that, but that doesn't mean that changes. And so, first of all, I would say to people, trust that. Trust that. Trust the love. Trust that love and connection that you have. And trust that, I've heard over and over again, I'm sure all of you have as well, animals express some version of that chapter of our time together has completed, but that doesn't mean that we are, done, right? And sometimes that not done is we remain in connection with me in the spirit world and you in the physical body, right? Sometimes that we're not done will be, I'm going to come back into your life again in some kind of a physical form. What I found is that people know, like, even if they're not hearing in the way that all of us are hearing or in this exact same way, people will recognize, people will see, people will, and maybe not even know that they're, something is happening. But for example, they'll just be suddenly have a feeling that, oh, I just need to go on this social media group that I've been on, and just check something out. And there will be somebody who's, available for adoption, and they'll just go, that's my dog, right? And they may not even know that it has a relationship to the former animal who's passed, but they just know this animal needs to be with me, right? Or somebody, your example, Karen, somebody finds it, your brother finds a kitten by the side of the road, and you want a kitten. Well, what are you going to say? No?
Right.
Right?
And the dream, that crazy dream, and how he
The
found
dream,
him was just
right?
like
Exactly.
crazy.
And people have those experiences. And I've also had, I've had students who've come to me like years after the fact, and they'll go, oh, I had no idea. Now I understand what was happening. But this cat came into my life in this really weird way. And then I looked at him, and it just felt like I could just feel it was so much like this cat that I had as a kid or whatever. I'm kind of making this up, right? But, they'll just feel it, like you feel it. And so I would say to people, like, it's the hardest thing in the world to just trust and stay open. And it sounds kind of woo-woo in a certain kind of way. Well, just see what shows up. But that's how it's kind of how it works, right? And like, pay attention. If you get that little feeling of, oh, today's maybe the day I should stop by the shelter, like, follow that hunch, right? Whatever it is, there's a million different ways this can happen, right? And, and also, I'm thinking of an example of an animal who was in spirit, who was a dog, a companion animal, but who would come into the wild ones for a period of time after she left, right? And the person could feel it. They could just, like, the way that squirrel looked at me, it was like her eyes, right? Now that's what I would call like a temporary coming in, right? It wasn't, that this dog had decided to come in and be a squirrel for the whole next lifetime. It was a temporary thing, but like you could feel it, right? And so, and none of these people are, working as professional animal communicators, right? They're animal lovers, like the rest of us, who were just like, wow, this thing happened, right? And so, sometimes there will be like very clear signs. You might get, you might see and there's a million different ways it can show up, right? A name on the license plate of a car, or image of, a particular kind of animal someplace that you wouldn't expect it, or somebody says the name, or, you hear, something, or, it can come in a million kinds of ways, right? And so, we have to stay open, pay attention, right? And as much as possible, stay in that kind of childlike, allowing state of being, rather than that pushing and trying to make things happen. Because Jen, we can't make things happen. We just can't. Much as we want to, we can't. We can't control it.
Right. That's part of the human experience, learning that there's something bigger and we can't control it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're running short on time, and I just want to say thank you. I've had some experiences in readings that you talk about, particularly like the braiding of souls, or I forget how you put it, but that I've experienced. So I feel like everything that you shared today gives us even more information and helps other people to realize what they could potentially be experiencing. And we don't know what we don't know. And it's wonderful. Yeah. To explore all of this.
And I would encourage anybody listening to this, just pay attention, right? Pay attention, see what you notice, see what you feel. Just, stay open, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you who are animal communicators, or who are training as, animal communicators, also, remember that, like, that open state of, wow, that's interesting. Show me more. Right? Can you show me more about that? Help me understand that a little bit more. Do you mean this? Or is it, like, you can ask questions, and the animals can help to refine it and refine your understanding, or maybe give you an image that kind of helps you to understand. All of those things are possible. And I think, we just stay open, we keep learning, we keep discovering, and our animals, as we all know, they're our teachers, they're the guides, They're the ones who can often show and articulate things about all of these multi-layered realms of existence that we can't quite completely understand from our human perspective, but they can help us. That's the magic and the beauty of what it is that we're doing.
Yeah. Wow. You also just brought to mind Jane Goodall, because I was just listening to an interview with her and Krista Tippett, and she talked just about that. Continue to be curious, continue to ask why, ask for their guidance, all of that. You just totally channeled her in that moment, Nancy. So thank you. What a wonderful way to,
bless her and all I don't think we could be having the conversation we're all having here today without her. And about the beautiful gifts and wisdom and teaching and light and soul presence that she gave.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great loss for this world that she has left. But I can only hope in my heart that the work she gets to do now still impacts us in ways that we just don't know yet. So with that, we cannot thank you enough. We could go on for hours, and I've got a list of questions because of what you just said. So will you please come back soon?
I would love to. It's been so wonderful to talk with all of you and to share this time together.
And all our listeners, please, if something pinged you and you really want to know more about it, please email us and ask your questions so that we can form more questions for Nancy when she comes back. That will help answer your questions as well. So Nancy, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they learn? Where can they sign up to go to your classes, learn more about you? Where should we send them?
Best way to find me is my website. It's nancywindheart.com. And you can find everything there. I do have a YouTube channel. I am pausing on social media for the moment, and I don't know if and when that will change. So the website right now is the best place. And I'm doing more on YouTube, but it's a little bit sporadic depending on my teaching schedule. So
we can't thank you enough for coming today and sharing all of your stories and wisdom with everyone. And we love you, and we're so glad that you are here.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all for inviting me to be part of this. And I love what you're doing with this podcast. And thank you all for all of your work and all of your beautiful hearts and souls.
Well, that was totally awesome, as I like to say. So we hope you enjoyed today's conversation on the Animal Communication Podcast with our special guest, Nancy Windheart. Join us each week for engaging chats with the three of us,
Meredith Tolleson, Julie Hirt,
and me, Karen Dendy Smith, about all things animal communication.
For more information about each of us and to keep up to date on our episodes, follow us on mindbodyspirit.fm, Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can contact us at info@theanimalcommunicationpodcast.com with any questions you have, and we'll answer it during a future episode. Also, when you have a moment, please leave a 5-star rating, write a review in either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and share an episode with a friend. Any and all of these actions helps others find us, and we're so grateful to you for helping us grow. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week for another conversation on the Animal Communication Podcast.
Feeling stressed or overwhelmed? You're not alone. Uncertainty and change can take a toll on your mind and body. Here at mindbodyspirit.fm, we've pulled together a collection of episodes from different podcasters that help you regain your peace. Find episodes on mindfulness, meditations, and coping techniques. Visit mindbodyspirit.fm and click on the Featured Podcast tab. You'll discover guidance and inspiration to help you survive in crazy times.